Video được Việt hóa bởi Ngọc Tân từ group tài nguyên dựng phim. Nghiêm cấm các hành vi lít về rồi bán cho thằng khác. Mọi ý kiến đóng góp xin gửi về Facebook Quỳnh Ngọc Tân.
Let's take a look at how to add an effect on the edit page. Here in the edit page, I've reset our layout so that we all know what the heck is going on. And over here next to the media pool button, there's a button called Effects. If we click on that, it opens up an effects panel down here. I'm actually just going to close our media pool just so we have a little more room. And I'll resize this for the same reason. Inside of the effects panel, we have a few different categories. One would be the toolbox. This is kind of where most of the built-in stuff for Resolve lives. And there are a couple different kinds of effects. The first would be video transitions. This is when one piece of video changes to another. And while that change happens, there is an effect. So like one that you see on the old cartoons is this oval iris kind of effect. And we can take this and drag that down in between two clips, just like this. And instead of a cut, it'll do this kind of thing. If we zoom in here, I'm just holding Alt and rolling up on my scroll wheel. And I can click and hold on my middle button on my mouse to kind of drag this back and forth so it's a little bit easier to see. Here on this transition, if I mouse over the edge of it, I can change the length of it. And so I can have this just take a really long time. There we go, like that. Or I can have it be really quick, depending on the length of that transition. Now, by default, if I zoom in here, if we add a transition to the video and we're in linked selection mode, it will add a crossfade transition to the audio, which just means that it fades from one to the other. This may or may not be what you want, but just like with the linked audio and video, if you hold down Alt to select either one of them, you can hold down Alt and select just the audio crossfade or just the video crossfade and hit backspace to get rid of it. Also, if you select the transition and go up to the inspector, guess what? You can change its properties in the inspector because again, you have it selected. You can change the properties up here. Here, you can actually change the transition type. So maybe we want this to be a heart. Aw, because they love each other. They're brother and sister. They love each other. Aw, isn't that cute? And there are a bunch of other different properties here, and they're all dependent on the type of transition that you have. Open that up and play with it. Again, even if you ruin something, you can just get rid of it and drag it back down. One thing to note about video transitions, especially if you're new to video editing, use them sparingly. Unless you have a really stylized video where everything is really like moving to the music and, you know, it's kind of this really crazy montage that's highly stylized, I probably would almost never use transitions. Now, this sort of gets into the realm of personal preference, but I can tell you as somebody who's worked in this field for quite a while that they almost always come off as a little bit tacky. So when in doubt, don't use a transition, just use a cut. 99% of professional work just has cuts. I'm gonna step down from my soapbox. So those are video transitions. We also have audio transitions, which work almost the same way. Then we have titles. These are text that is generated on the screen. We're gonna get into these in the next couple lessons, as well as generators. The next little category here is just called effects. Now, this is a little bit confusing in Resolve because you would think that if you want to have an effect like blur, that would be under effects. But there's only really a couple of effects in here. And the reason is these effects are kind of the things that are built into the core of Resolve. And some of the other fancier effects that we'll get into in a second are technically just plugins that come with Resolve. If you don't really get it, don't really understand the difference, it's not that important. Just know that some of the effects are here and a lot more are in Open Effects down here. The effects right here, a lot of them are fusion effects. And what that means is that they're using the power of the fusion page to make these really cool effects on the edit page. And so you can preview any of these just by mousing over them, and it will show you on the current clip. And they're pretty cool. If you want to apply them, you can just drag them down onto the clip. And now we'll have this effect on that clip. Again, if you select the clip and you go over to the inspector, there's a little section here that's going to be brightened up a little bit called effects. Here are all the effects and all the properties that are applied to this clip, whichever clip you have selected. So we can change these around and kind of customize the effects we want. Very cool. I'll get rid of this effect here by just hitting this delete filter button. And these are really cool, quick things that you can just drop onto your clips. There are a couple effects up here. There's Fusion Composition and Adjustment Clip. Fusion Composition we'll get into a little bit more in the Fusion section of this training, but the Adjustment Clip is basically just a clip that goes over other clips, and you can apply an effect or color correction or all kinds of stuff to this clip, and it will affect everything below it. You can think about this as like a layer of clear glass that you're putting over everything below it. So if I do this digital glitch thing, I can put that on the adjustment clip and it will affect the video below it. But if the video is not below it, it won't have that effect. So this is a really great way to apply a big effect to an entire movie. So I could have this adjustment clip over our whole scene, and those glitches will happen on every single shot below our adjustment clip. Now, with these fusion effects, it does take quite a bit of power from your computer. So even on my system, which is a pretty good system, this has taken a little bit to render. These fusion effects right here work best when they're right on a clip, because it kind of has to do more thinking if you put it on an adjustment clip. But this is really great for color correcting an entire scene, putting something like film grain over things that aren't quite as intense on your hardware. So let's jump into the open effects. Now, open effects are like plugins that you can use in a variety of different software. People sell huge packs of them, like the Sapphire pack that does all kinds of crazy stuff. And I just have a trial for this on this PC, so it doesn't actually show you everything. So it has that little red X over it. But these are things that don't come with Resolve, which you can install yourself. But Resolve, and even the free version of Resolve, comes with a whole bunch of Resolve effects. And these are the kind of things that you probably are thinking of when you think about applying effects to your footage. Things like blurs, or color effects, or lens flares, or sharpening. Things like adding a vignette. And there's just a ton to go over here. So we're not going to go over every single one of them, but this is where they live. And the way that you apply them is just like the other effects. You can grab them and drag them onto whatever clip you want. Go up here to the inspector and you can adjust the properties. Really, really cool. So let's actually use this glow effect to do something cool to our whole movie. If we go back up to effects, we can grab that adjustment clip and I'll drag this down and put this over my entire scene. Then we'll go back to open effects and scroll down to light, and let's grab glow and put glow on top of that adjustment clip. Now with the adjustment clip selected, and go over to effects, and I'm just gonna tweak two things here. This is a really cool subtle effect that I've been into a lot recently, especially with kind of these high contrast things like this. On this glow, you can take this sign threshold and turn it all the way down, which is obviously a little too much glow. But when we scroll down to color and composite, right here where it says composite type, let's go to soft light. And now, if we turn this on and off, we have this sort of subtle little glow that just brightens up the colors a little bit. It kind of darkens some of the background. It has this kind of little hazy look that even at full strength is pretty subtle and can really make your movie pop. So here it is without and with it. Just a nice little effect. So open up the project, put an adjustment clip over it, throw the glow on it, take this sign threshold all the way down, and change this composite type to soft light. Play around and see how you like it. But that's kind of the ins and outs of how effects work in the edit page.